Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. Now, which one is the perfect Porsche 911? Would you go guns out and have a GT2 RS? Maybe a GT3 RS? Maybe they're too hardcore, maybe a GT3. But then I like four-wheel drive, so maybe the Turbo S. Carrera 4S? Then there's the 991 or 991.2 or the new 992. It is a world of complexity, especially if you're not massively up on your 911s and your Porsches. But this morning, I took a trip over to Reading, the headquarters of Porsche UK, and I picked up a set of keys. And I picked up a set of keys to what I think could well be the perfect sweet spot for a 911. In fact, this is the spec sheet for it. Sounds pretty good. 450 horsepower, that'll be enough. 350 Newton meters of torque, that's gonna go. 191 miles an hour top end, 0 to 62 miles an hour in 3.5 seconds. Surely that's fast enough for anybody. This is a spec sheet for the new 992 Carrera 2S, and it's parked outside. Should we go and take a look? What do you reckon, Petrol Pup? Or are you going to stay there, dude? Follow me. Handsome, isn't it? Now, we'll get on to the styling in a moment, and we'll also get onto that little ducktail spoiler that I've lifted because I just think it looks really cool. But this is the new 992 911. But the styling, well, we probably need to be a bit of a Porsche enthusiast to really understand some of the styling cues. Now, I'm going to start this review by just saying I'm by no means a Porsche 911 expert. In fact, it was only a couple of years ago that I drove my first ever Porsche 911, and to be honest, up until that point, I really didn't get what all the fuss was about. And then I drove one, and then I realised what the fuss was about. And I've been very, very lucky. I've driven a wide range of 911s, from the basic, or if you like, the entry-level Carrera and Carrera 2S, all the way up to 911 Turbo S and GT3 RS. So I have driven my fair share, and they have a very, very special driving dynamic and very special feel. This new 992, for the uninitiated, it looks very similar to the outgoing model, this classic 911 shape. They don't like to change it very much, and the format remains good old 911. Engine at the back, boot at the front. And now this is currently anyway, the entry-level 911 992. This is a Carrera 2S. At the back we have a flat 6 3-litre turbocharged engine coupled to perhaps one of the best dual clutch gearboxes out there, the 8-speed PDK. And that kind of layout, really, that's your 911. That's what you want. That's what the purists want. You might argue whether or not you want a manual or an auto box, but absolutely stonking. Around the back it is a little bit different, so let's just very, very briefly go to the back of the car. I don't think the front looks that different from the outgoing 991.2. So I think the styling of the back end of this car is absolutely bang on. You can start to see the current Porsche design language in the car, this continual kind of red LED strip going across, really sleek lights, big bold Porsche lettering on the back. I just think it looks absolutely fantastic. Now, I've on purpose put this rear wing in the up position. It's an automatic one. It raises when the car gets to a certain speed on the motorway when you're out and about, but you can raise it manually. And I just want to do that because it's much, much wider than the outgoing car. It's quite a big statement, I think. Now, there will be some of you that don't like that. I personally think it looks really smart. And clearly, if you went down the GT3 or GT3 RS or GT2 RS route, when they eventually come out in 992, you're going to have a massive, great big ironing board stuck on the back of the car. In the down position, the back of the car looks sleek and 911-like, and all the purists will be happy. This car has the sports exhaust option, which actually is loud but not ridiculous. It's a really mature sound. Again, like most modern day cars within the last 12 months or so, there's no big raucous pops and bangs. It just has a really nice sound to it. The outside then doesn't look that different to the outgoing model. The inside, however, is very, very different. So come on, let's jump inside and I'll show you the inside of the new 992. Oh. Now, this interior is a bit special. The choice of materials in here is absolutely spot on. Everything has this premium feel and quality, and the smell of leather is very difficult to get across on camera. The big change, the big difference in this 992 on the inside anyway, is the dashboard display. So if I just fire the car up, I've now got a TFT screen in front of me. And on there is all of my touchscreen controls for the car. Now, the first time I saw that was in Panamera, the only thing it's missing, it doesn't quite have the haptic that the Panamera had, but everything is driven through that. There are very few analog buttons in here, and that might be for some people a real challenge, because most of the control of the car has to go through that. In things like Macan and Cayenne, there's a line of buttons down here typically where you can do stuff. The only manual or analog buttons in here control the aircon, and then there are 5 buttons along here. The other display in front of me maintains the iconic 911 display. The central display is an analog rev counter, and I just think that looks lovely. It redlines all the way just past 7,000 RPM. And then either side are 2 TFT screens, which look like analog dials actually, but they're not. They are TFT screens that from the steering wheel here I can control and change to different settings. The big problem I have with these though is there are 5 screens, but if I'm sat here driving like this, I can't see the 2 outside ones. I can only see the central 3. And even if I put my hands down a little bit, I kind of still find yourself doing that. Now, they don't put the really important information on those screens, but if the right-hand one is set to sat-nav, which it can do, and I've got full Google Maps integration on here, so it looks really cool, is you can only see half the map, so you kind of end up doing this, which isn't so good. That said, that's a minor gripe. Everything else in here is really very pleasant indeed. It's really lovely in here. Hold on a minute, let me just turn the engine off for a little bit of quiet. Let's just talk about the seats, because when I first got in this car, the very first thing that drew my attention were these seats. I'm loving this center panel, and you've got the same thing on the actual seat. I just think it sets the car off beautifully. Porsche crest in the headrest, really comfortable. Now, these are 18-way adjustable electric seats. They're a £2,300 option, but I have to say I'd be very tempted because I think they're just spectacular. Now, if you saw my 718 Cayman S video towards the back end of last year, I was asking the question whether or not that car could be my daily, whether I could run it every day and use it. And one of the problems I had with that car is it only had 2 seats. And because we got the 2 dogs, I said, well, maybe a 911 would be better. Well, I'm now in a 911. I've got 2 seats. You guys think of what I'm thinking? Could I fit 2 dogs in the back? Well, let's see, shall we? 3, 2, 1. Yeah, of course you can. How's it in the back there? Is it good? What do you reckon? Do you think we could live there? I think we'd need some harnesses, obviously. Plenty of room in the back. We can't do a boot test though, because the boot's in the front. Now, should we go and have a look at the boot? Because I have a feeling that that's going to be a very, very usable space in there. Right then, should we leave them in the back? Or are you going to come? Oh, are you chilling? Oh, very good. Don't scratch the leather. This is a Porsche car. Let's go and have a look at the boot. Now then, let's just quickly pop the boot. Bonnet. Never quite worked out what that's meant to be with a rear engine car. Now, one of the problems I had recently with the R8 was the storage space under the front of the car was really quite limited, but this is legendary. There's huge amounts of space in there. You could easily get a couple of big flight cases in there. So that, coupled with the huge amount of seats behind the front seats. Now, we've already established we could get a couple of dogs in there, but you might get a couple of children, but I wouldn't want to be an adult in there for any length of time at all. So I'm sure for most 911 owners, you go away, there's two of you in the car, and those rear seats are where you put most of your luggage. And that makes this a mega GT car. You could go away for a week or 2 weeks if you pack lightly. There's loads of space for storing stuff. It makes it so practical, so usable. But at the moment, this is the entry level 911, and I have a feeling it could well be the best in terms of how it drives. So there's only one way to find that out, and let's go for a drive. Now I'm going to start this driving part of the review in normal driving mode, in full auto, and I'm just going to mooch for a bit, because the first thing that strikes you when you get in this car is it doesn't feel edgy or that sporty or intimidating at all. It's just a car that you could drive every day quite happily. It's so easy to drive. When you get to a corner and you turn in, the steering feel in the car, even at slow speed, is delicious. There's a lovely weight to the steering. It's kind of got this, it's bizarre. It's quite heavy until you start turning in and wanting to kind of push on a little bit, and then it just lightens up, and it's so direct and so nimble. It's beautiful. I love it to bits. It just makes you want to drive more and more and more. Now, for those of a certain generation, my generation, when you were a kid, you probably had a poster on your bedroom wall of one of three cars. You either had a Lamborghini Countach, a Ferrari F40, or a Porsche 959. I think I might have had all three, actually. But back in the 80s, the Porsche 959 was the most ballistic hypercar ever imagined. Phenomenal, phenomenal thing. And it had 450 horsepower. This is the entry-level 911, and it has 450 horsepower, so it should go. So the next thing we're going to do is basically play with a little dial here. We're going to flick it into sport mode. A couple of things happen. The exhaust turns on, so this has got the optional sports exhaust fitted. In normal driving mode, it's actually quite sedate. It doesn't make much of a noise at all. It's kind of just there in the background. But now it's there. It's there, it's part of the theatre. You've got that engine behind you going, come on, let's go for a drive. So that's exactly what we're going to do. In fact, the first thing we're going to do is a 0 to 60 test. 3, 2, 1. 60. Not bad. And that was just in sport mode. This car certainly comes alive when you engage sport mode. I have a feeling if I owned this car, I would probably be in sport mode most of the time. However, I have this car for 2 days. It's beautiful and sunny. The road is dry. I am therefore going to engage Sport Plus. The other thing I'm going to do, because this is, after all, one of the best double clutch gearboxes out there, is I'm going to push the magic M button here, and I'm going to go to the paddles, and oh man, PDK is such a cracking gearbox. Once you're in Sport Plus and you've engaged the manual paddles, you have the most delicious gear change at hand. Although I can imagine a manual one of these would be just as epic. But it's when you chuck it into a corner. The front end of a 911 is always very precise, but when you've got this rear wheel steering, you can just feel the back of the car, and even you don't have to be going that quick, but when you do go a bit faster, it just tips in and you can get on the power, and it just sounds fantastic. But the thing I love about it the most is, don't get me wrong, this car is very, very quick. It's got 450 horsepower. Of course it's going to be quick. But it's not stupidly quick. You can actually feel like you can push the car a little bit. You can kind of get on it. But this is great because you really feel like you could deploy a good chunk of this car on the public highway and have a lot of fun. And that's what I love about this car. I think if you went to, you know, I've driven a 911 Turbo S and they are absolutely incredible machines, no doubt about it. Phenomenal, phenomenal things. Four-wheel drive, the same kind of feel and precision as this, but they're so massively rapid that you almost feel like you're going through a time warp when you put your foot on the accelerator. This is more manageable. I think you could really have some fun in this car. It's fast, but not ridiculously fast. There is one thing we do need to have a discussion about, and it's perhaps one of my biggest problems with this car. We need to pull over and have a chat about spec and price. Okay, we've pulled up in a dodgy lay-by, but I want to talk you through this. So this is the spec list for the car that we're in. Now, first things first, this is a press vehicle, so it is pretty well equipped. But the base price for the Carrera 2S is £93,000. And the options that are on this, I won't read you through everything, but the expensive stuff, and the stuff that I like sadly, the rear axle steering, £1,592. The sports exhaust in black, £1,844. Sport chrono, which is a real must, 1,600 quid. Front axle lift system, I haven't used that actually, but that is 1,700 quid. Tot all of that up, and we are looking at, the car we're in is £109,000. And that's my problem. For me, the Carrera 2S was always the, well, I'm going to say attainable 911. It wasn't silly money. I can remember them being 60, 70,000 pounds when a Boxster was maybe 35 to 40,000 pounds. Now even Boxsters now are 50, 60, a well-spec one might be even 70,000 pounds. And I know all manufacturers' cars keep going up and up in value, but now for the entry-level 911 to be over £100,000 once you put some spec on it, which, let's face it, you want to keep the residuals up, I think that's a lot of money. Is this car worth £109,000? It's a quality product. You know residuals are going to be really good. It drives beautifully. You could use it every day. It's going to be as reliable as a reliable thing. So yeah, it probably is. Can I call this the kind of entry-level 911 anymore? Probably not. It sits right in the category of proper supercar with a six-figure price tag. Oh wow! Final impressions of the 992 Carrera 2S. Oh man, I love this car. It took me a while to get my head around 911s, but the second I drove one, they're very special cars. They just have this feel to them that is just so special, and they're just so direct and beautiful to drive on the road. They're a real driver's car. But I have to say, when you see a reduced speed now, tight corner coming up, in one of these you actually drop it down a gear, increase speed and go around the corner faster because it's just so good. Inside, very comfortable place to be. I love the lower, really low down driving position. You really feel like you're sat really deep into the car. I like that a great deal. The new dash, I like the main central screen. It is a bit fiddly because you're at a bit of a stretch, so when you're at speed you probably don't want to be messing around with that too much. The display I have the most problem with is this one. So I love the central analog rev counter, but the two screens either side, they're so compromised by where the steering wheel is, you can't see the ones on the right hand side really. And I just don't think that's great, but I will forgive it because they're not screens that you really, that one's showing me the time and the temperature, which is just late and hot, and that one's showing me my well, important things like how much fuel I've got left. It's pretty frugal, to be honest. What have we got? Let me just see very briefly. In my time with the car so far, average consumption at 18.7. Maybe I've been giving it a bit too much Yahoo. Maybe it's not so frugal after all. Overall though, I love this car. I really do. I think I'd love to spend a long time in it, do a long journey. Long trip to the south of France would be really, really beautiful, I think. But I have to thank Porsche UK a huge amount for letting me have the car for a couple of days. It's always nice to kind of just get under the skin of a car, drive it for a bit before I switch some cameras on, which is what I've managed to do with this particular review. So big thanks to them for letting me have the car. I hope you've enjoyed it. I would love to know what you think. What do you think of the new 992? Is it your pick of the bunch? Which 911 would you have? Would you have this one? Or would you spend a bit more cash and go a bit faster and get something a little bit more high performance? Not that 450 horsepower isn't high performance. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol for plenty more content to come. And I'll see you on the next film, guys, but you take care. Drive safe.